Hi Nathan, thanks for coming in today. How are you doing?
Eh, eh, so.
So. Okay. Um, I saw that there's been some changes over this last week. Can you tell me kind of about what you're thinking and what you're feeling from our last session to now?
Yeah. So I don't know why, but my boss just won't talk to me much anymore. I,
Okay.
I don't think I did anything, but just doesn't want to talk to me very much.
Yeah. Did your boss talk to you much before?
Well, yeah, we used to talk like all the time and, every day. And when I try to call my boss, it just seems to not answer. And I just think that my boss is ignoring me at work.
Hmm. That's a frustrating change for sure.
Hmm.
How is that making you feel?
Well, get pretty angry about it.
Yeah.
I don't know why my boss doesn't like me anymore.
Okay. Yeah. There can be a lot of factors that contribute to that, and that's something that we can definitely talk more about. Um, do you think that your anger is only stemming from your relationship with your boss, or is there more going on that you want to talk about?
Well, I live at home right now with my mom, and she kind of treats me like a kid sometimes, and
Hmm.
won't let me smoke at home, and doesn't let me have people over. So I don't know. Life's not too
Yeah,
much fun right now.
sure. That can also be frustrating as well. Um, have you expressed your concerns at all to your mom, or what does that look like?
No, I don't think she'd really care to hear what I have to tell her.
Okay, okay. Um, Do you have any siblings at home with you or anybody else in the house?
Just my mom and me.
Okay. Um, how has that relationship been previously, if you don't mind me asking? Is that
Mm.
like regular for you guys to kind of butt heads a bit, or is this kind of a new thing?
Yeah, mostly we just leave each other alone, but I think
Okay.
since my boss just stops talking to me, my mom is kind of the person that I want to talk to because I don't have anyone else to talk to, but and we
Hmm.
don't get along sometimes, so
Yeah.
just isn't much fun.
It sounds like this situation with your boss is really frustrating you. Um, and you said that it's making you feel angry. Are there any other feelings or reactions that come up from um, having your boss not return your calls and kind of just be a little cold shoulder to you?
Well, yeah, I did tell my mom that if my boss doesn't start talking to me, I'm gonna do something pretty bad to myself.
Okay, yeah. Would you be able to explain more of what um, do something bad means?
Well, what I told my mom is if my boss doesn't talk to me, I'll probably just drive off a bridge.
Okay. Um, so given the weight of that, um, we obviously want to take that very seriously. And as you have mentioned, the situation with your boss has been pretty distressing for you, and that's clear to see and what you're feeling and um, what this has brought up for you. And as much as I want to talk about the situation with your boss, I think talking about thoughts of hurting yourself and harming yourself are going to be more important to speak about right now because safety is our top priority. And I need to make sure that you are okay before we start to dig into more of the complex issues as well. Um, so, with that, would you be open to answering a few questionnaires for me just to um, kind of gauge where you're at, how you're feeling. Um, yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't know that it'll help a whole lot, but I guess we could do that.
Yeah. Um, Thank you for your openness. I know sometimes it's a little daunting, but we'll try and make it as straightforward as we can, okay?
Sure.
All right. So, um, this first one is really going to speak to um, what you have been feeling over these last couple weeks with your boss, with your mom, with whoever else, or whatever other situation you might be experiencing that you haven't mentioned. Um, it's 9 questions and it's a scale of 0 to 3. And 0 is going to be not at all. 1 is going to be you felt this way several days out of the last 2 weeks. 2 is more than half the days over the last 2 weeks, and 3 is nearly every day over the last 2 weeks. Um, do you feel like that's a pretty understandable scale?
Sure.
Okay, sounds good. So we'll get going with it. So the first one is within the last 2 weeks, have you had little interest or pleasure in doing things?
Yeah, two.
A 2? Okay. Within the last 2 weeks, have you felt down, depressed, or hopeless?
Three.
Okay. Within the last 2 weeks, have you had trouble falling or staying asleep, or have you been sleeping too much?
Probably a two.
Okay. Within the last 2 weeks, have you been feeling tired or have little energy?
A one. I still go to work every day.
Yeah. And that's awesome that you are able to do that. Um, Others aren't, so that's huge. Um, Within the last 2 weeks, have you had poor appetite or overeating?
Probably a one for that one too.
All right. Um, Within the last 2 weeks, have you felt bad about yourself or that you are a failure and have let you or your family down?
Definitely a three.
Okay. Within the last 2 weeks, have you had trouble concentrating on things such as reading the newspaper or watching television or activities like that?
Yeah, three, because all I think about is why I can't talk to my boss anymore.
Yeah, yeah, understandable. Um, and 2 more questions. In the last 2 weeks, have you been moving or speaking so slowly that other people could have noticed? Or have you been so fidgety and restless that you have been moving around a lot more than usual?
Probably a one for that one.
Okay. And then lastly, in the last 2 weeks, have you had thoughts that you would be better off dead or of hurting yourself in some way?
Yeah, at least a two, but maybe even a three for that one.
Okay. Um, thank you very much for your honesty and openness throughout that. Um, I know some of those questions can be hard to reflect on, um, but I'd also like to encourage you that you did have some low scores, which is great. And that gives us a baseline and a foundation to then um, work towards getting those other scores lower. So, um, with that, I'm going to continue to the next survey. So, that last survey was more about how you've been feeling. And this survey is going to talk more about um, kind of the thoughts of harming yourself and thoughts of killing yourself as well. Because, like I said, that is something that's very serious and not to be taken lightly. And so I'm going to ask you some of these questions. If they make you uncomfortable, we can take a break, pause, we can skip a question. But once again, this is just for us to kind of get a bigger picture so that we know kind of the situation from all angles, okay?
Sure.
Okay. So, you mentioned that you, because of the situation with your boss, you um, have thought of driving off a bridge. So would you say that you have had thoughts about being dead or what it would be like to kill yourself?
I mean, yeah, I guess, each
Sure.
day when I drive home, I think about, oh, maybe it's just easier if I just drive off this bridge and then I won't have to worry about any of this stuff anymore.
Okay. Yeah. Um, and is it the same point within your drive home in which you have those thoughts?
Eh, it varies from day to day, but I don't have a really long drive, so, you
Okay.
know, at some point on the drive home, I usually think about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Um, Beyond that, um, so have you had any thoughts in which you would wish to be dead? Um, I know that this is kind of similar to the last question, but um, instead of the act of killing yourself, have you just thought of it would just be easier to be dead?
Yeah, I mean, I think if things continue with my boss and we
Okay.
don't talk, then maybe it would be better off if I wasn't here anymore.
Yeah. Okay. That is, yeah, it's definitely clear that this is having an impact on you, the situation with your boss. So I'm going to ask a few more questions. Is that all right with you?
Sure.
Okay. Um, when you have thought about killing yourself and you mentioned driving off a bridge, are there any other um, things that you've thought about in how you might kill yourself?
Well, I haven't thought about this too much lately, but I did try to take too many pills about 6 years ago and ended up
Okay.
having to go to the hospital and spend some time there. So, I mean, if the bridge isn't an option, I guess I could do some other things, but I haven't thought too much about anything else recently.
Okay. Okay. Um, what was the situation like that led you to take the pills? Was there any sort of um like situation that kind of triggered that response or no?
Well, I did have a work situation and then had a pretty bad breakup, which
Hmm.
didn't seem bad at the time, but yeah, I guess it got pretty serious if I got to the point where I was doing things to hurt myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it sounds like you care a lot about the people around you, so transitions like that can be really hard. Um, with the thought of driving off the bridge, is that something that you'd say is kind of a solidified plan for you, or is it more just a passing thought?
Uh, it's probably been more solidified over the last couple days. You know, maybe a week ago
Okay.
it was just kind of a passing thought, but it definitely is as the days go on, just kind of seems more like a real thing that could happen.
Okay. Okay. Um, that's huge that you're able to recognize that because, um, yeah, that's that's definitely a step in being aware of how this is impacting you. So, um, that's powerful. Um, okay, I have a few more questions, and then I kind of want to talk about what, um, kind of coming up with a plan in order to, um, protect ourselves and be, conscious of our safety might look like. Okay. Okay. All right. Um, so um, you mentioned that you had um, this plan of driving off the bridge. You do have this plan of driving off the bridge. In your previous situation with the overdose, was that also something planned, or was that more impulsive?
Yeah, I mean, I thought about it for a while and you know, wasn't too serious. But then after a while, when I just didn't feel better, then I thought more about it and kind of decided to take too many pills. So I guess in some ways it was kind of planned.
Okay. Okay. Um, do you find that in these situations you um tend to rely on substances as kind of a calming factor or no?
Well, I mean, I do have a couple glasses of wine each day, usually to try and calm myself down, not think about stuff, which kind of helps, but it also, you know, probably doesn't help things too much either. And then I
Okay.
start thinking about a lot of stuff when I do that. So,
Okay. So would you say sometimes that having those glasses of wine contributes to more kind of racing thoughts and maybe even ruminating on things such as like the situation with your boss?
yeah, I mean, I guess in some ways it calms me down, but then it also gets me worked up. And then I argue more with my mom, and that just
Okay,
makes everything worse. So, yeah, it probably doesn't help too much.
sure, sure. Um, so I have noticed a couple things in our conversation, and I would love to be able to share those with you, and then you can just tell me if those are accurate, and if not, we can have a conversation. Um, so what I have noticed is that the situation with your boss and has been very distressing. And it's also distressing that when you go home, you also can't really escape from feeling angry, just because of your relationship with your mom. Um, it sounds like because of the nature of the situation, you have a plan to kill yourself, by driving off a bridge. And that's just your regular route to and from home. And also, this isn't your first time contemplating suicide. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, what I've also noticed is that it sounds like with this plan and also your last plan and your overdose, um, that it kind of went from passing thoughts of killing yourself to more of a solid plan. Um, and that came with time and that came with thinking about the situation. Um, so I almost wonder if you would be open to kind of disrupting those thought processes. So it goes, it doesn't have the opportunity to solidify into a plan and it'll stay kind of in the passing thought phase until we're able to kind of rid your brain of those thoughts altogether. And I know that sounds very ambitious.
Yeah. Again,
Yeah,
I don't know if that'll help, but I don't
right.
know. Not, I guess I could try it.
Yeah. Um, so because your safety is our top priority and because um like I said, that is our top priority and that's what's most important right now. Um, would you be open to having your mom either drive you to work or pick you up from work or carpooling with somebody else to work?
Well, it's not really what I want to do,
Yeah.
and I don't know that she wants to do it, but I guess I'm not totally against it, so
Okay.
I
And
guess we
that's
can try
something,
it.
right. That's something to explore and it's temporary as well. But just as we're having these thoughts, and having this plan, it can be helpful to disrupt it and come up with another pace for a little bit until we're kind of able to come up with what a different response can look like. Um, in addition to that, do you think maybe instead of having a couple glasses of wine a night, do you think you could maybe have maybe one or two or something, if that's what kind of contributes to your racing thoughts?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
If it's gonna help, I guess I can do that.
Yes. And these are practical things, right? So we kind of need to solidify the practical stuff and ensure your safety before we're able to kind of dig into how the situation's making you feeling and making you feel and um, yeah, its effects on you. So if you can do those things over this next week, then our next session, we can kind of circle back. We'll go through that first questionnaire again, see if anything has really changed. And then we can start really talking about what the situation with your boss is like and steps forward with that. Does that sound all right?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for coming in today. I know that it can be hard to talk about these things, and you're very honest, and I really appreciate it. So thank you for showing up.
Yeah. I hope things get better.
I hope so too. Alrighty. I will see you next week then.
All right. Bye.
All right. Bye.